When Cary Grant was 9 years old, his father told him his mother had gone on a long holiday. A year later, his father told him she had died. Cary Grant spent the next 22 years believing his mother was dead. He grew up resenting her for abandoning the family. He built a career pretending to be someone else. He became one of the biggest stars in Hollywood history, while carrying the weight of a mother he thought had left him behind. And then, when he was 31 years old, his father called him back to England. His father was dying, and he had something to confess. The mother Cary Grant thought had been dead for 22 years was alive. She had been locked in a mental institution the entire time, and his father had known exactly where she was. This is the story of a lie that stole 22 years from a mother and son. And the man who told that lie never faced a single consequence. Before Cary Grant became Cary Grant, he was Archibald Leach, Archie, a boy grown up in a small house in Bristol, England, with parents who worked in factories and barely made enough to survive. His father, Elias Leach, worked as a tailor's presser. Long hours, low pay, he drank too much and came home angry. His mother, Elsie Leach, worked as a seamstress. She had suffered from depression for years, ever since Archie's older brother died of meningitis just before his first birthday. Elsie never fully recovered from that loss, and Elias did not have the patience or the compassion to help her through it. Archie was a small, thin boy who loved watching his mother dance around the kitchen. She taught him songs. She took him to the cinema on rare occasions when they had a little extra money. She encouraged him to take piano lessons even though they could not afford much. And then, when Archie was 9 years old, he came home from school one day and his mother was gone. His father told him she had gone on a long holiday, a seaside resort, he said. She needed rest. She would be back soon. Archie believed him, because you believe your father when you are 9 years old. Weeks passed, then months. Elsie did not come home. Archie kept asking his father when she would return, and his father kept telling him soon, any day now, do not worry. And then one day, Elias sat Archie down and told him the truth, or what Archie thought was the truth. His mother had died. There was no funeral, no grave to visit, no explanation of how or why, just a cold final statement. She is gone. Archie was 10 years old, and he believed his mother was dead. His father remarried shortly after, started a new family, sent Archie to live with his grandmother in a cold, lonely house where no one talked about Elsie anymore. It was as if she had never existed. Archie grew up angry at his mother for leaving, angry at his father for replacing her, angry at the world that did not seem to care whether he was loved or not. He stopped going to school. He wandered the streets of Bristol looking for odd jobs, for distractions, for anything that would let him forget that his mother had abandoned him. And then he found the theater. At 14, he lied about his age and joined a traveling acrobat troupe. He left England. He left his father. He left Archie Leach behind and started building someone new. Someone who did not need a mother. Someone who did not need anyone. By the time he was in his 20s, Archie Leach had become Cary Grant. He worked his way up through vaudeville, through Broadway, and finally into Hollywood. Paramount Pictures signed him and told him to change his name because Archibald Leach would not sell tickets. So he became Cary Grant. Smooth, sophisticated, charming, the man every woman wanted and every man wanted to be. But underneath the tuxedos and the accent and the perfect hair, Cary Grant was still Archie Leach, still the boy whose mother had died when he was 10, still carrying the belief that he had not been enough to make her stay. He married, divorced, married again. He could not hold on to relationships because he did not trust that people would not leave. How could he? The first woman he ever loved had disappeared without saying goodbye. Cary Grant became one of the biggest stars in the world. He made millions of dollars. He starred in films that are still considered masterpieces. And through all of it, he believed his mother was dead. Until 1935, when he was 31 years old. And his father sent word that he needed to see him. Elias Leach was dying, and he had something he needed to say. Cary Grant flew back to England. He had not seen his father in years. He had no particular affection for the man who had remarried and moved on so quickly after his mother's death. But Elias was dying, and there are things you do because they expect it, even when you do not want to. Cary sat beside his father's bed, and Elias told him the truth. "Your mother is not dead." 4 words that destroyed everything Cary Grant thought he knew about his life. Your mother is not dead. She is alive. She has been alive this entire time. She is in an institution, a mental hospital in Bristol. She has been there since you were 9 years old. Cary did not understand at first, could not process it. His mother was dead. His father had told him she was dead. There had been 22 years of living with that fact. But Elias kept talking, kept explaining. Elsie had been struggling. Her depression had worsened. She heard voices. She had delusions. And Elias did not know how to handle it. So he had her committed to the Bristol Lunatic Asylum. And then he told his son she had gone on holiday. And then he told his son she was dead. Because it was easier than the truth. Easier than admitting he had given up on his wife. Easier than explaining mental illness to a child. Easier than taking responsibility. So he lied for 22 years. Cary Grant left his father's bedside and went straight to the asylum. Glenside Hospital, it was called now. The Bristol Lunatic Asylum had been renamed, but it was still the same place where his mother had been locked away for over 2 decades. He found her in a small room. Elsie Leach. She was in her 50s now, but she looked older. Years in an institution will do that. And when she saw her son for the first time in 22 years, she did not understand who he was at first, because the last time she saw him, he was a 9-year-old boy. And now he was a 31-year-old man, a famous man, a stranger. But she knew him, eventually, and Cary broke down in a way he had not allowed himself to break down in decades. His mother had not abandoned him. She had not chosen to leave. She had been taken from him. And she had been sitting in that hospital, alone, for 22 years while her son grew up believing she was dead. Cary arranged for her release immediately. He bought her a flat in Bristol. He hired someone to care for her. He made sure she had everything she needed. And then he had to reconcile with the fact that he had spent 22 years angry at a woman who had done nothing wrong. Cary Grant carried that guilt for the rest of his life. He visited his mother regularly after that, flew back to England whenever he could, tried to make up for the 22 years they had lost. But you cannot get that time back. You cannot undo 22 years of believing someone abandoned you when the truth is they were stolen from you. His daughter, Jennifer Grant, later said of her grandmother Elsie, "The truth is that her life was taken away by my grandfather. Not lost, not ended, taken by a man who decided it was easier to lie than to deal with the consequences of his choices." Elsie lived in that flat Cary bought for her until 1973. She died at 95 years old. She outlived her husband by decades. And during those years, Cary tried to build a relationship with her. But it was complicated. She had missed his entire childhood, his entire transformation. She did not know who Cary Grant was. She only knew Archie, the little boy who used to dance with her in the kitchen. And Cary had spent so many years resenting her that even after learning the truth, he struggled to fully let go of that anger. Not at her, but at the situation. At the time they lost, at the lie that had defined his entire life. Elias Leach, the man who locked his wife away and lied to his son for 22 years, died shortly after confessing. He faced no legal consequences, no social consequences. He was never charged with anything, never publicly shamed, never held accountable. He just died, and the lie died with him. Except it did not really die, because Cary Grant carried the weight of it for the rest of his life, and Elsie carried the weight of 22 years stolen from her. And that is the part that should make everyone angry. Not just sad, angry. Because Elias Leach made a choice. He chose to lock his wife away rather than help her. He chose to lie to his son rather than tell the truth. He chose his own comfort over their suffering. And he got away with it. There was a quote Cary Grant gave later in life that takes on new meaning when you know this story. He said, "I pretend to be somebody I want to be, and finally, I became that person. Or he became me." Cary Grant was not just a stage name. It was a shield, a way to be someone other than Archie Leach, the boy whose mother disappeared and whose father lied. But even when you build a new identity, even when you become one of the most famous people in the world, you cannot outrun the past. Cary Grant was charming, sophisticated, untouchable on screen. But Archie Leach was still in there. Still the boy who came home from school and found his mother gone. Still the boy who believed he had not been enough to make her stay. And that duality, that constant performance of being someone else, defined his entire life. Here's what matters about this story. Cary Grant's father did not just lie to him. He stole 22 years from a mother and son. He locked away a woman who needed help and told her child she was dead. And when he finally confessed, it was only because he was dying and did not want to carry the secret to his grave. There was no apology, no accountability, just a deathbed confession that shattered everything Cary believed about his life. Elsie Leach spent over 2 decades in an institution because her husband decided that was easier than dealing with her illness. Cary Grant spent over 2 decades resenting a mother who had never abandoned him. And Elias Leach faced no consequences. But Cary did something remarkable despite all of that. He rescued his mother. He took care of her. He visited her. He tried to make up for the time they lost. Even though it was not his fault, they lost it in the first place. That is a part of this story that deserves to be remembered. Not the lie, but what Cary did after learning the truth. If you want more stories about the damage caused when powerful people lie and the strength it takes to survive those lies, subscribe. Because Hollywood was full of men like Cary Grant, men who built perfect images while carrying unbearable pain. And the people who hurt them almost never faced consequences.